Hi guys, and welcome to a new episode of Supplement Science. So I hope everyone's doing well, and today we are talking about electrolytes. So the last couple of episodes have been on intra-workout supplementation. This one is still covering intra-workout supplementation. So the three basics, generally what I would recommend people to have in their intra-workouts would be an essential amino acid, which was a couple of episodes ago, a carbohydrate powder, which was the last episode, and then an electrolyte powder or some form of electrolytes within there as well, which is today's episode. So electrolytes are basically just minerals, so essential minerals that are vital to the body. The two main ones that I'm going to focus on are sodium and potassium, generally because they have the main role when it comes to training performance and general health and recovery, let's say, when it comes to resistance training. So sodium helps maintain normal fluid balance and helps in terms of normal sort of muscle function and nerve function. Potassium helps in terms of maintaining a healthy blood pressure and heart rate, and again muscle and nerve function as well. So when would you have the electrolytes? So like I've said, intra-workout generally. I would also recommend it potentially intra-cardio if you have cardio in, or you could have it post-cardio. You could have it pre to make sure that you're in a euhydrated state, but generally I would just recommend that you ensure that you're in a euhydrated state prior to training anyway, and then the electrolytes can help in terms of basically refueling any losses, any sweat losses during training, and regaining that hydration post-training or post-cardio. So why would it be useful to have an electrolyte in there? So basically it's very evident that if you're dehydrated, then it's going to have a negative impact on performance, not just in the gym, outside the gym as well. So obviously exercise-induced dehydration, specifically when you're training, will have a negative impact on that training session and likely your recovery from that training session. So drinking a carbohydrate source with an electrolyte is generally going to mimic like a sports drink. So if you were to think of like a Lucozade or a Powerade, what we're trying to do with our intra-workout is almost mimic that. So I've often had to, if I've run out of carb powder or run out of electrolytes, it's not a bad idea to quickly run and grab a couple of Lucozades to cover what your usual intake would be. So basically what we're trying to do is obviously mimic that sports drink to aid our performance as much as possible. And it has been shown that a carbohydrate and an electrolyte drink mixture is slightly more beneficial when it comes to training performance than water alone. Obviously, having water alone is going to be better than having nothing, but even further than that, having a sports-like drink like what we're going to create in our intra-workout is more beneficial for performance. So obviously the reason for that is you're going to be hydrated, and therefore you're not going to have the negative impacts of hypohydration, which is if you are not hydrated. So you've got hypohydration, euhydration, which is being an optimal normal level of hydration, and then you've got hyperhydration where you're almost overly hydrated. So if you are hypohydrated, so basically dehydrated, that will lead to reductions in strength, power, endurance, skill acquisition, cognitive function, mood, all of these factors, even just general bodily functions outside the gym that aid recovery. Obviously, if we make sure that we're hydrated, none of those will really occur. If we do have cellular euhydration, so like I say, that generally means you are well hydrated, that will increase blood flow, that will increase cognitive function, increase strength, increase power, increase water to the muscles, increase blood to the muscles, therefore increase nutrient delivery to the muscles, which is going to lead to increasing the pump in the gym, which is going to lead to increasing the mind-muscle connection, which is generally going to lead to better performance, better hypertrophic results. And then obviously we've got to look at the general bodybuilding diet. A lot of the time people will look at people putting salt on like all their meals, let's say pre-workout, to make sure they're hydrated, intra-workout, post-workout to regain that hydration. And people will think, oh God, they're having a lot of salt. But realistically, none of their other meals have any salt in. They're very rarely getting a Chinese takeaway that's got loads of sodium in. They're not adding loads of sauce to all their meals that's high in sodium. So being sort of analytical with exactly how much sodium and potassium you're putting on your meals isn't an unhealthy thing. Salt is obviously in high doses can be related to things like heart disease and strokes due to the level of increase in blood pressure. But if you are accurate with how much you're having, and if you also make sure that you're consuming a well-balanced diet with enough potassium as well, and all the other vital vitamins and minerals, generally consuming a decent amount of sodium to aid hydration isn't anything to worry about at all, especially when you're an athlete and you are sweating a lot and exerting a lot of energy when you're training, whether it be an endurance athlete or a resistance trained athlete. So how would you take it? So generally I would take it with a carbohydrate source. So that is going to help in terms of the uptake of the sodium in the water, like I said, which is then going to help in terms of hydration and getting a better pump and a connection in the gym. I would look to replace the fluid lost through sweat, which is very hard to analyze accurately. You can't just finish a session and think, oh, I've lost 1.8 litres of sweat. It's very hard to analyze. So what I would generally suggest is potentially lowering and increasing your dose dependent on the current conditions. So let's say obviously peak summer, really hot in let's say a gym that's not air conditioned, you're going to realistically want to be consuming more fluid and potentially more electrolytes that are going to be lost through sweat versus this current time of year. So in the winter where we're all in lockdown, training in cold garages where you're probably struggling to even get a sweat on. So that's something to think about. I would generally recommend anywhere between sort of 3 and 8 grams of electrolyte powder. So I've got the Hydro Zero here, which is the CNP product. The dose here, the recommended dose is 6 grams. So like I said, anywhere between sort of a range of 3 to 8, dependent on the condition, would be a good idea. So my thoughts on it, my main sort of talking point, my main focus would be to ensure that you have achieved hydration before you train. So making sure that you are in a hydrated state before you even focus on anything like this. If you're not hydrated and then you're just having this, you think it's going to make the difference. It's not. You need to focus on being well hydrated day to day anyway. Making sure you're hydrated prior to training, so getting a lot of fluid on board before training, salt in your meals prior to training as well. And then having the electrolyte powder as a added benefit to basically reduce the chance of training-induced, so exercise-induced dehydration. It may, like I say, you may need to have less or more depending on the conditions. And I would also recommend using like Himalayan pink salt and low salt to salt your meals. So that is almost like mimicking the two electrolytes that I've spoken about, sodium and potassium. So low salt is generally higher potassium. So you could add those to your meals prior to training to aid your hydration, to make sure you're in a euhydrated state prior to your session. If you can't afford to get an electrolyte powder, which most people might not want to, they might think, oh, I don't need to get that, I could just add sodium and potassium to my meals and to my intra-workout, feel free. So I use sodium potassium in conjunction with this anyway, so I don't have to use as much of this to get the required amount of sodium that I want. So yeah, you could use it in conjunction or as an alternative, a cheaper alternative. So the product, like I said, the CNP one is called Hydro Zero. So it's $12.99. It tastes really, really good. If you don't like the taste of adding salt to your drinks, then I would definitely recommend looking at this. So it's $12.99 for 20 servings. But that is everything on electrolytes, guys. So any questions on that, please just ask. The next episode will be next week, and I will be talking about creatine. There it is. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.